Hi, everyone. Friendly audience, love that. I'm Jackie Leventhal, and I'm the Chief Brand and Content Officer here at 6th and I. Whether you are here with us in person or watching virtually from home, thank you so much for being with us tonight and for your support of a nonprofit. By show of hands, for how many of you is this your first time at 6th and I? Wow. Welcome. Okay, so I'll share a bit about our history because so many of you are new. This building dates back to 1908, and it was a synagogue for 45 years, and then home to an African Methodist Episcopal Church for the next 50 years. And when the church relocated and put the building up for sale in the early 2000s, the highest bid was from someone who wanted to turn it into a nightclub. And if you ever come here for a concert, you know that we dabble in what might have been. But this place was destined for something greater, and it was saved within 24 hours. And for the past 19 years, 6th and I has served as a center for arts, entertainment, ideas, and Jewish life. Our aim here is to inspire more meaningful and fulfilling lives through an unexpected mix of experiences that embrace the multifaceted identities of everyone we serve. We are so excited to welcome B. Dylan Hollis here tonight. This is the first stop on Dylan's book tour for his debut cookbook, Baking Yesteryear, which actually doesn't even officially come out until tomorrow. So you all are the first. You are the first people to get your hands on this beautiful book. In 2020, while many of us got into baking and hopped on the sourdough starter train, Dylan channeled his quarantine boredom into filming an investigation of an old cookbook that he had collected from an estate sale. New to baking, Dylan baked his way through vintage 20th century cookbooks, and the videos he posted on TikTok quickly caught on. As our worlds shrunk beyond recognition, Dylan's baking time travel made our lives feel more expansive, and his hilarious takes had a way of making our days feel a little lighter. Becoming a social media personality with over 10 million followers on TikTok wasn't Dylan's plan. He's actually a jazz musician by training with a passion for big band jazz from the 40s and 50s. His fascination with mid-20th century American culture is at the heart of his adventures in baking. Baking Yesteryear includes 101 recipes from the 1900s to the 1980s, highlighting the most unique treats of each decade. The book illuminates eras marked by shortages, war, and ultra-processed groceries, and most importantly, it revives recipes that may otherwise be lost to history. Recipes like chocolate potato cake or avocado pie each have a story behind them that may remind you of your own family's food traditions or inspire you to start new traditions around your tables. Tonight, B. Dylan Thomas will be in conversation with Dave Jorgensen. Dave is a senior video reporter leading the Washington Post's TikTok team, and he launched the Post's TikTok channel in 2019, after which it quickly went viral. Dave is also the author of Make a TikTok Every Day, and there are autographed copies for sale tonight. Later in the program, we'd love to hear your questions, and you'll be invited to line up at the standing microphones in each aisle. Thank you all again, both here and at home, for joining us. Please give B. Dylan Thomas and Dave Jorgensen a very warm welcome to 6th and I.
Hey, everyone. Wow. This is way more people than when we're making TikToks, you know what I mean?
Oh, they're up there, yeah.
There's never this many people in your kitchen.
No, I don't think they would fit.
Don't set up that challenge, they'll try. So anyway, hi everyone, I'm Dave. This is Dylan, as you well know. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to Six and I for having us. We're going to make this the best discussion you ever had because most of you have never been here before. So really, we're starting from the bottom. It's great.
I tell you what.
Yeah. Dylan, I'm going to start from the very beginning, and I mean the beginning, and ask about where you're from, Bermuda. And so I'm curious how you got from there and into Laramie, Wyoming, two of the most remote places probably on this side of the Western Hemisphere.
Yes, by plane.
Good night. You just took a checkmate right there and just...
No, well,
Okay,
well,
yeah.
you know, when you said from the very beginning, I said, is he going to ask me about my mother? I don't quite remember that. But no, I was born and raised in Bermuda. If you guys don't know where Bermuda is, it's that little, country off of the east coast of the United States. It's about an hour and a half from New York by plane. And it's very, very small. It's a mile wide, 21 miles long. So, you see what you need to see rather quickly. And I was, born in the dark ages, pre-2000s. And I graduated high school in 2014, and I said, you know what? Where can I go that is completely different? So I looked on a map, and I looked for the most barren state. And I said, you know what? Is there a university somewhere in this Wyoming? And I visited there, and I auditioned at the University of Wyoming, and I fell in love. Wait, we got some UW here. Yeah.
Go Cowboys?
That's Tracy Kidwell. Tracy, it's good to see you.
Wow.
We were in the music program together.
Just you two?
Oh yeah, just that. That's Wyoming for you.
Well, that's my next question, though. You've been you mentioned the intro to your book that you this one that you've been studying piano since you were 6. So what songs do you know?
Don't ask me about Wonderwall. No, I had just, I wasn't a very bright kid when it comes to mathematics and these things. And my grandfather was a musician, a calypsonian, and he always had sort of an electric piano, or pianos were always around the house. Only one. I'm making it sound like we have a large house. We don't. But yeah, I taught myself, and any musician here would know that that's a bad idea if you're needing to learn music or do a music degree. But it was the one thing that I enjoyed. I fell in love with, and I played it until my fingers fell off, and I got into jazz. And then I gravitated, and I managed it. Fun fact, I was not able to get into the University of Wyoming in piano because I couldn't read music.
Did you pick a different instrument, or?
Yes, because I had learned how to play the tuba. Or
the tuba?
Sorry, tuba.
Tuba. Yeah. I was like, wow, he just made up an instrument. Okay.
So, long story short, yeah, I got into that, and I graduated from UW in 2021, and got my degree in unemployment, and yeah, since then we've moved on to baking, which makes perfect sense, I suppose.
What a perfect segue. Did you read these? In your introduction, you said, it is well known that the degree in music is a degree in unemployment, and that you got into baking as a result of lockdown during the pandemic. You did start your account April 2020, but you didn't post anything related to baking until August. Is that right? What were the videos in that gap?
Oh my goodness. So, I posted my first video on, how should I put this, the 20th of April, 2020. And it was about 11:59 at night, and I had
just under the wire.
Yeah, and I had just come back from Walmart with a rug, and for whatever reason, I was thrilled about this rug. So if you scroll down to the very depths of my TikTok, here you see my first video, and I'm just on a rug, laughing. So, you know.
This is not the direction I expected. Go on.
Me neither. To think I'm sitting in the nation's capital now, speaking to all of you after a
It's
rug.
quite legal here. I'm told.
Rugs,
Yeah.
of course, yeah. But yeah, I tried all sorts of new things when it comes to, I tried to, do some jokes here and there. I've always been a collector of old things, so, my old car, I drive a 1963 Cadillac, the same that you'll see featured in Baking Yesteryear. So I did videos, telling about my life things. And then, one August day in 2020.
Pork cake.
Pork cake, yeah.
Tell us, if you dare, about pork cake.
Well, yeah, of course, the recipe's found its way in here.
Never
But-
mind. Everyone get a book.
No, that's why I like speaking about it. Because I was flipping through these old cookbooks because we were all so bored during the pandemic. And I was just looking for, because the internet, as you know, with your book and your time on TikTok, people love wacky, out there, crazy things. And flipping through that, and you see blueberry muffins, pancakes, rusks, pork cake. And it's like, 1 second.
I've got an idea.
And as sure as night follows day, next thing I was getting baking powder, flour, and a pound of ground pork. The cashier lady looked at me sideways.
That's the guy from 420.
First a rug. And then I decided to film it, not knowing that during the process, I would fall in love with it. People seem to have taken a liking to the protocol. And now here we are. Yeah,
We are here.
It tasted like a question mark, and I still stand by that.
That's the review I want of tonight's talk.
Yes.
Tasted like a question mark. Okay, I have a very technical question for you from one TikTok creator to another. I feel like most, at least of your recent videos, are just under 60 seconds. What's the reasoning behind that? And do you feel, what kind of stuff are you cutting out to make sure it fits in the sort of timeline that you want it to fit in?
Yeah, I mean, it's the great thing about a lot of the recipes I try is unlike a lot of the French stuff and whatnot that has laminated pastry. A lot of the Western American recipes are fairly short, so naturally they tend to hang around 70 seconds. Why I keep it under 60 seconds is, of course, that's all what it used to be,
Right.
It had to be under then, so you needed to cut all of these things out. And I keep it under sort of around 60 seconds just because, me included, we don't have that much of an attention span.
What?
Yeah. So what I end up cutting out is, you wouldn't want to see the stuff that I cut out. It's just me, after I do the egg, then I have to get the eggshells and I wash my hands. And all of the outtakes are just me saying, pork in a cake, what is, But no, I try and keep it, based on the steps, and naturally you can't taste anything until the end, until you bake it. So the whole formula sort of makes itself in many ways.
I think a lot of people here would watch the GoPro live feed of you just in your kitchen.
Oh.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe one day.
Yeah. I'm sure there'll be plenty from this too. Okay, one last technical question. I'm curious how you edit because, I go through the very laborious process of shooting on the phone, then editing on my computer, then putting it back on the phone. What's that like for you?
You'd be surprised to know that it is still just me in my apartment kitchen with my phone, with, one of those, construction lamps, from Ace Hardware, clamped to the faucet of my sink.
Did you buy that with the rug?
I'm never going to live that down. And I film on my phone, and in order to edit it, I quite simply do just use iMovie. But of course, you can't actually edit vertical videos. So I have to flip it this way. So when I'm editing my videos, I'm like this. And then I put it right back, so it's fairly low budget. And yeah.
That's all I needed to know. Thank you. Okay, now I actually want to talk about the book now. Yeah, that's what we're here for. So one thing that I genuinely love so much about this book is I can hear your voice in it. It's so clear in the introduction. It's so clear just in the recipes at the top. I started to read it in your voice in my head, which felt kind of weird, but I was like, whatever. In the early part of it, you're just kind of you have like a sort of quick kind of dictionary of, what does it mean to beat something. He says, to beat a mixture is to simply mix it as if you're angry at it. And I just had like flashes of you just like in the TikTok too.
Yes.
Well, that's definitely his definition. That's a huge accomplishment, really. So doesn't have a round of applause. The book itself, and just the fact that you're able to transfer the voice, so your voice, a voice.
Yes.
What was the process of doing that? Did you go back and forth with an editor a lot? Were they kind of free and open with how you were writing these recipes? Was anything cut?
Oh, was anything cut? Well, my writing style is that I sat there and I basically said everything that I wanted to write, only because, that's how I read. That's how I wanted to get these things across, and I don't know how best else to write, even with my essays in high school. Little Dylan was writing like Dean was talking as he was writing. Did I say high school?
Hey, so there's a lot of late bloomer,
Late bloomer, oh yeah. But yeah, that's how I wrote. I write as if I was speaking, and only because I don't know how to use the proper literary style and the grammar and all of that. And I thought that's what those who got the book would want to read. Read it in my voice. So,
those voices say yes, they like your voice.
there was a lot of back and forth with my editor because of American to British spelling and a few expletives that I really wanted to keep in there.
And those were, yeah.
Well, I won't tell you about the expletives, but there was one of those jokes with the impossible pie when I say there's some things are statistically impossible, perpetual motion, and happy AT&T customers. And my editor, Mr. Rigby, said, Dylan, we really can't have that in the book.
This event was brought to you by AT&T.
So things like that were cut out, and the process was, I don't know. I think when you really enjoy something, your ability to speak on it and write about it at great length is quite easy. And I feel a great privilege that it came to me easily. Spelling and punctuation and all of that, my editor,
take care of it.
They fixed it for me.
Yeah, we don't care. Okay, so one of the things you did do so well, this is the whole impetus of the book, is adapting old recipes. You mentioned, I think in the 1900s intro section, there were measurements like butter the size of a walnut, a suitable amount of flour. How do you translate that? What, did you just keep trying suitable amounts until... How does that work?
Yeah, I started with a teaspoon, and then, 3 hours later, we got the wheelbarrow.
Right. None of this is suitable.
What I ended up doing through all of this is I would look for, recipes that would crop up a lot in other cookbooks in any given decade. So take, for example, the pork cake. Believe it or not, that was not the only pork cake in the 1910s. So I would find, a 1910 recipe for pork cake from Michigan, and then a 1914 pork cake from Long Island. And, if one said a suitable amount of flour, but the one from Michigan said, about 2 cups, okay. I could then deduce, okay, maybe, the person in this state isn't so insane. And I would...
In D.C., we call that a swing state. This guy's got a U of M shirt on. Okay. Yeah, good.
So I was able to deduce, and in that way, I took the best thing about sort of each recipe that I would find, say 4 or 5 per decade, and I would choose things that I liked from one iteration, disregard things that I didn't like about another iteration, or things that didn't work entirely. You know, like one recipe that told me I needed 4 pounds of butter to only a cup of flour. Now, if I had any sense, I could have known that that was absolutely a mistake. But of course, my dense self ended up baking it. Yeah. So that was no good. It was a pudding, but it was supposed to be a cake.
That's how all of my anything goes. Yeah. Except when I tried your banana split bars. Those were delicious.
You liked them?
I did like them.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yes.
I like anything.
On page, I don't know, 110. Okay.
Yeah.
There is a recipe earlier in the book. Tell me if I'm mispronouncing this. Anzac biscuits. It's and it stands for Australian and New Zealand. Help me out.
Australia, New Zealand, Army Corps.
Okay, great. So, where are you finding recipes like this? I know that you're going all over the place. Where do you find that recipe specifically?
You would find them from expatriates from Britain primarily, who would, of course, get them from Australia, and then only really along the East Coast. For the Anzac bickies, you know, many of the recipes that first cropped up were actually in newspaper clippings. So the newspapers would have columns, much like you would see classifieds and whatnot. They would have recipes also back in the day.
I'm learning about a newspaper. I've heard they're great. Okay, good.
Yeah, and you know you have to unfold them.
You're supposed to unfold them. Okay.
But a lot of the Anzac, now, you can't call them cookies. You'll be shot, as I said. They are biscuits, but anyone from sort of New Zealand or Australia, they're bickies. They're bickies. They're Anzac bickies. They're lovely. They're my favorite variety of oatmeal cookie, favorite variety of oatmeal biscuit. And they use golden syrup, which is how you can tell if you know an expatriate is writing it. Golden syrup isn't tremendously available in the United States. It's a molasses light, and coconut and a lot of butter and baking soda. You actually mix the baking soda on a saucepan with the butter, so it fizzes up, and then you quickly make it. And they're a beautiful cookie. But Anzac bickies. That was different in that it comes from newspaper clippings, and a few of the recipes that I tried were from, you know, British cookbooks that were drawing from Australia.
And you went to the Library of Congress today. What did you find there? What did you still find?
I'm no Nicolas Cage. I'll tell you that.
No, you're not. Just kidding. The same.
I, despite me getting in late last night, I was up at the crack of dawn at what I would call dark 30. So excited at the prospect that me, some, you know, skinny foreigner, was going to the Library of Congress in the nation's capital. I mean, I was blown away. But you know, we got a tour. We went up to the rotunda at the very top, and I could see over to the Capitol, and it was marvelous. But I was there taking a look at what you might very well guess, deduce, old cookbooks. And I mean, phenomenal stuff from 1820. I took a look at the treatise of like adulterous poisons in foods. You know, pre-18.
Those are not in this book.
No. Pre-1820s, you know, if some flour manufacturer wanted to add some extra, you know, we need to get my bag of flour up to weight, you know, add a bit of sawdust in there. Or, you know, to increase the strength of your leavening agent, you would get some, you know, really acidic, erosive acid, and, oh, you know, it makes it better, all of that. So you would have non-edible foodstuffs that would find their way into foods, and, you know, Grandpa, you know, Bill would keel over at dinner, and people would be like, there he goes. So this chap, Frederick Hume, wrote a treatise trying to make sure that people don't have poisons in their food, which you would think is fairly basic. And that's not tremendously long ago. So I took a look at that. Some great gay cookbooks from 1960s. Which was phenomenal. On the back cover of this cookbook called The Gay Cookbook, you had this chef.
It was just called The Gay Cookbook.
It was?
Outstanding.
I promise.
I'm proud. That's
And
awesome.
On the back of this cookbook was this chef in high heels and a dress and the biggest plume of chest hair you could see. And I said 1965? Mercy, I did not expect that. It was fascinating. And let me tell you, if I would have had my bag nearer, I would have tried to. But no, I have, the police in this nation scare me. They're very foreboding. But
Okay.
so much. I mean, I could have gotten a mattress and slept in there, just among old cookbooks.
Or a rug.
Yeah, or a rug.
Sorry, last call. I can't stop.
They collect everything out there. I mean, from ephemera, just commercial recipe books from as far back as your imagination has, really. And yeah, just everything. It's phenomenal.
Well, I want to go to, sort of the 1920s and 1930s, because between that decade in your book, there's just a section on dates. Which was just so delightful. And I mean this in the best way, with no explanation. It's like, and now dates. So tell me about the decision to insert what I believe is your favorite fruit into the book.
It's my favorite fruit after men. You lined that up for me pretty nice. If anyone here has perused through any old cookbooks, you'll know invariably that people were obsessed with dates. They were, I'm not sure what they had in dates. Speaking of like the illicit side of things, but people were obsessed with them. And I mean, to speak truthfully, it was because, the Coachella Valley in California and these deserts were pumping them out like no one's business. And they lasted forever, and they had a naturally high sugar content, and for me, they taste really, really good. So all of these factors means that dates had tremendous staying power on grocers' shelves throughout the decades. So yeah, you would have dates in cookies, you would have dates in puddings, souffles, crepes, waffles, everything. You start put dates in your gas tank, I would assume. But I had to pay homage to the fact that nothing crops up more in those sort of decades than, dates. And of the things that, are notorious and polarizing, I would much rather speak of dates over my nemesis, lard.
That was, wow. That's 3 years of TikTok just,
I know.
they were ready for that moment.
You're like a mirror into my psyche. Goodness me.
That was the algorithm feeding back.
Now I'm going to hear the low hum of lard when I go to bed tonight. Goodness. So yeah, dates. I just had to pay homage because they're everywhere.
Well, you also pay homage to your most popular TikTok, peanut butter bread.
Oh yeah.
Yes, yeah, which is also that was your reaction when you made it too.
Wow.
So where did you find that recipe? And I think you've answered this, but I want to, journalism. Is that actually your first time trying it in the video, the peanut butter bread? Because it's like a very famous reaction of just like, oh my gosh.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I found it it cropped up a lot in Great Depression cookbooks. I derived it from a Nebraska community cookbook. Several of them by a Methodist church, I believe. But regarding the reactions, I knew from the very start, I do a few takes of things, If I fail to say eggy correctly or I sneezed once mid-eggy, that would be a fun blooper, I tell you.
This guy's like, yeah.
But the one thing that I never fake, because I know for a fact that if you try to fake something like a reaction to eating food, I believe anyone would be able to tell that it's faked. We're very smart, especially when it comes to, humans, when it comes to eating and reactions and reading people's facial reactions. Plus, I didn't want to have to brush my teeth and do these things, all these retakes. So every reaction is genuine, and I stand by that because I think that's what makes, the whole brand, if you want to call it that.
I believe that. I mean, I think that's the most successful TikTok accounts are where it's coming from a place of sincerity, in all seriousness. And that clearly is reflected in that and in the book.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I love this quote from the book. I'm just going to read it first. Just go with me. This is a Great Depression cake without butter, eggs, or milk. It is also very good. These two things should not be concurrently true, and yet you too can experience the truth in about an hour's time. I love everything about that, the joke, but I actually think what you're doing here, at least maybe secretly, I don't know, is making it feel very accessible. Where I'm reading that and going, oh, maybe in an hour's time, I too will know the truth. What is is the book for everyone? Is it novice to expert bakers? Are you trying to, create that feeling of, hey, you'll know the truth?
I want people to know the truth. And I wanted every recipe to be, very accessible because I learned how to bake on TikTok. You watched me learn, I am no baker. I am no, well, I am now. But I didn't know what I was doing. And in discovering all of these recipes and the fact that me, a very dense individual, could recreate many of these, I knew that thus they must be accessible because, anyone out there is better at baking than me. And that's the very nature of community cookbooks as well. I speak a great deal about community cookbooks here. If you're not familiar, community cookbooks are compiled by everyday viewers like you and I. Viewers of what? I don't know why I use that word. But everyday people like you and I, they were church lady committees, and they were members of the Rotary Club, or maybe the Lions Club, and they would compile these recipes. And in that sense, it was the everyday people's bakes. And in that sense, they're accessible, and in that sense, the recipes in baking yesteryear is accessible. Now, there are some, that are more difficult, especially in the early 1900s. Things like boiled frostings for Lady Baltimore cakes.
Sometimes they just sound made up.
Which is you're essentially making divinity, hot syrup and egg whites and whipping it, and it's an icing that actually hardens into a shell. So some of those are more difficult. But no, I knew from the start that this had to be accessible only because I don't know how to make, Napoleons or millefeuille or any of these croissant. What's that?
I'm interviewing you. I don't know. So one of the recipes, I was reading it in the potato candy, and I was like, I'm not going to make this, but I do want to watch the video of him making it, and I did, and it was delightful. Is every recipe in the book also a video that already exists on TikTok?
No. No, I know.
Out!
I know.
Will they?
Some, yes.
Okay.
There are some that, because I do, when I was writing this, last year especially, I was baking every day. And I knew that there were some things I wanted to bake, and I wanted to try, and I wanted to make, and I couldn't make a video on them at the time. Because, of course, writing a book, turns out, is tremendously difficult. And I also wanted it to be something new, Because, in many ways, yes, it would be fun to have a video to every recipe in here. But in the same sense, then, the book, is the book really giving you any, that much more? So I knew I wanted to have some that didn't have a video, so maybe I could prove myself on the writing front or the recipe front. But, of course, all of the classics, the chocolate potato cake are in here, things like tomato soup cake, potato candy, all of these things.
Actually, okay, let's skip ahead to this question. It's one sentence. Why did you put condensed tomato soup in cake? I saw that, just why?
Yeah, you can only assume under the influence of something. Someone somewhere. It's one of those things.
What month were you writing the book?
It's one. There are those culinary pairings that really don't quite make sense. My father once told me about having warm maple syrup on a spoon and sprinkling Italian seasoning on it. And I said, Dad, is this really a pairing? And lo and behold, it, tasted, quite intriguing, quite nice, quite woody, but sweet. And I was like, this is very interesting. I mean, less obscure ones are like, the watermelon and balsamic vinegar is a really cool combination. And tomato soup and a spice mixture is just one of those things. I mean, before Campbell's and the company got a hold of the whole tomato soup craze, that was a secret ingredient in a lot of spice cakes, was condensed tomato soup. But of course, once Campbell's, the soup company got wind that
they're using this in our cake. We gotta make it a deal.
So,
Well, hold on. Is that your? Is that your impression of a Campbell's executive? Let me get AT&T on the phone.
I don't know, I just imagine a very rotund individual, smoking a cigar in some boardroom somewhere, and it's like,
Hey, they're using our soup. We need to capitalize on that.
and it worked.
All right, that's how it happened.
Just like that, you heard it here.
We'll update the Wikipedia page after this. Okay. You reference your grandmother a few times in the book, including when you're talking about the sour cream cookie recipe. So why is your grandma a sour cream cookie? It's a lot of whys now.
Without context, that sounds quite frightful.
You explain it well in the book, so I'm giving you. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's something special about grandmothers, when it comes to introducing you to all things loving and homely. And, I would be picked up from school, and maybe because I was so small at the time, but I would be fed a hot cross bun, 2 muffins, and a slice of pound cake by the time we even got home. So I was well...
Hold on. What was it again? Those you ate them at once together?
Maybe I'm being a bit hyperbolic.
Okay, all right.
Dave.
I'm very literal.
I was fed a great deal of baked goods by
So
my
your grandma is not actually a sour cream cookie.
No, that would be, tremendously scary.
Okay. We all agree on that, no matter what day of the year it is. Okay. Sorry.
But no. You're still going.
I can't stop.
But I don't know. She introduced me to all of the things that I continue to love even well into my 20s. My grandmother's 93. Yeah. And I dedicated this book to her, Peggy Jane Hollis. And I saw her in June, and she needs to make sure you keep well fed. I know you got your tour, but you can put 1 or 2 granola bars in your back pocket. I said, I know, Granny. I don't want to crush them. But in regards to the sour cream cookies, the way they made me feel, that very simple, very loving, not exuberant, doesn't wow you with pomp or circumstance, but something that is just really enjoyable, and you can take a break out of your day. And in many ways, that's what my grandmother gives me. So, Granny's a sour cream cookie. Yeah.
That's really nice. We have to shout out your mom, who's watching virtually and attempted to pay for a ticket.
Yeah, my mom. Hi, Mom.
I don't know where the camera's at.
She lives vicariously through me, and she's always got my back, and she's just so pleased with everything that's going on. And I try to explain to her, I said, I have no idea how I've ended up here, but I'm glad you're happy. I'm happy. If something's gonna break soon, but yeah, no, she's watching from Las Vegas, Nevada currently. So.
Your family just picks the most random places.
Oh yeah, Bermudians, we're something else.
Yeah.
We like to go just complete wacko places.
There is a wacko place you go in your book, segue. at the end, you have the worst of the worst section, and it is just, let me just try to find them. Okay, jellied meatloaf. Yeah. My wife was reading the book from the other room. I'm like, what are you, what? And she said, pickled cheesecake. I'm like, that's enough. I didn't know there was a worst of the worst section when she was reading this. And SpaghettiOs Jello ring. So these are intentionally bad recipes. You know more about cookbooks than I do. Have you ever seen that in a cookbook intentionally putting bad recipes in the book?
No, no. And
So why?
well, you know, I'll start with this. Yesterday, I was in Pennsylvania, and I was on QVC with David Venable, in the kitchen with David. And he was flipping through the book on camera, and he was, saying, oh, this looks lovely. We got the Robert Redford. We got the, chocolate mayonnaise cake. Fantastic. And I don't think anyone told him that there were bad recipes in the book. So live on air, he switches to SpaghettiO Jello ring. And he starts saying it, and I could just see his gears turning. And he's like, SpaghettiO Jello ring. And he says that one platitude or whatnot that everyone, that's something else. But no, it was so fun. It was fun to be on QVC. It was great. And maybe he did know. I don't think he did. But I wanted to include the worst of the worst only because, when I began writing this book back in the day, still the bad recipes still kind of consisted of half of the recipes that I tried. Half were bad, half were good. And then, there were some nights where, I really didn't like my stomach screaming at me for 8 hours straight. So my will to do, boiled beef calf, I said, okay, let's go for things that, did I say boiled?
It's okay now.
What is boiled beef calf? I have no idea. But I wanted to do, I looked for things that might not, cause dyspepsia. But yeah, it was paying homage to my journey, through TikTok and what it means. And I did just want to prove that no matter if they're in a cookbook, no matter if they're in a newspaper, there are really bad ideas out there. And you would be foolish to think that they don't exist.
Anyway, pickled cheesecake, you can try. Okay, you actually mentioned the journey on TikTok. I want to wrap around to that. So, where do you think you would be right now had it not been for this series of events? The pandemic, TikTok blowing up, what would you be doing? Do you think you would have found your way to baking yesteryear, or what does that look like for you?
Not in a million years. No, at the time that this started, I was getting ready to graduate, and I was going to head back home to Bermuda, and I was going to be a music teacher in my high school, my alma mater, Warwick Academy, Bermuda, in Warwick Parish. And I would have been, I would have had fun, despite the fact that there's something about children that do scare me. The little ones. I love them to death. They're great. But I mean, sometimes the way they look at you. No, I'm joking. But,
Any kids here, earmuffs. Yeah.
No, it's, how can you tell, where you would be?
Of course.
It's tremendously difficult. But in many ways, I don't know. I feel like Lady Luck has been on my side in, more ways than one. And how do you thank something as ephemeral as Lady Luck? To put a phone in my hands and a rug in my shopping cart.
We brought it back.
Yeah. The ping pong,
I'm all out of rug.
I would have been a music teacher, and I don't think I would have ever gotten into the joy of baking if it weren't for very specific circumstances.
Well, I'm a strong believer that certainly luck is a part of it, but you don't. Without the hard work, you have to have both at the same time. So clearly, you're a hard worker, for sure. Give him a.
I try.
I found an actual good segue from your mom. I don't know why I didn't use it before. My mom has made one recipe that's in your book many times, my whole childhood. Scotcheroos.
Yes.
And I saw that and I was just had that feeling, that warm feeling you've been talking about. Is there any other recipes in the book that are at least related or directly from your childhood, some kind of nostalgic reference within them?
Yeah, there's a pie from the 1950s called the Kiskadee Fantasy. And it's a pie my father told me how to make and taught me how to make. And I had the pleasure of writing about it in the Wall Street Journal recently. And it's the most simple pie of a saltine cracker crust, a chewy meringue as sort of a second crust, and then sort of pineapple and whipped cream. It's very simple. And in many ways, like the Scotcheroos are simple. But going back to circumstances, depending on where or when or how you might have come to try something at a particular time, especially in your childhood, boy, can it attach some powerful things, some powerful feelings to really quite simple foods. And in that way, I think there is magic in baking, if I'm to get a little bit dramatic. But yeah, the Kiskadee Fantasy from the 50s is one that I think about a lot. There's also a hot cross bun recipe from Bermuda that we would have every sort of Easter. That really brings it back there. And speaking about the sort of adoration of that, which I do, it is, maybe some of it is me, but some of it is like you were describing. I would do a video and you would have so many comments saying, I remember making that with my grandmother. I remember making that with my aunt. And those things would just come back. And yeah, that's why I think it's fun to rediscover a lot of these things.
Another part of the nostalgia is you have a very kind of specific timeline here, 1900s to 1980s. I can't think of another book or anything that encompasses that. So how do you choose the beginning, that timeline?
Well, it's actually very simple. Pre-1900s recipes began to get a little more abstruse, a little obtuse. And that requires, people to think.
Wouldn't want that.
And to have some modicum of culinary understanding. And at the time when I started it, I couldn't attempt those recipes. So that sort of kept it. There's another thing is that it's kind of, the older you go back, the less books there are. So, finding 1800s books, I found quite a few in the Library of Congress today, but out in the wild might be difficult. So it sort of sequestered itself to that decade a little more. And then going beyond the sort of 1980s, one, I didn't want to call myself old. And two, I would get a whole lot of people angry at me if I did a recipe sort of from the 90s, I was born in the 90s. I was too.
Did that guy meet the Campbell's exactly?
You're getting a window into my mind,
Yeah.
Dave.
It sounds crowded.
So it sequestered itself there, and in many ways that's where a lot of the fun is. You go too far back, you get into some really gnarly things, and you go too modern, you see how modern recipes have really become a melding of all that which is old, in that they become not too dissimilar from one another. So you get a lot of interesting things, approachable things, wild, wacky, and wonderful things in those 8 decades.
What does the sequel to this book look like? Is it what I stole from the Library of Congress? I'm not working with the FBI on this.
Well, I tell you, should this book do well, and should I have the pleasure to write another one, I don't think I would do anything that much outside of my wheelhouse. It would be nice to maybe look at, maybe geography more so over years, but, it's not even publication, Dave. I don't know.
Okay, you're gonna have time to ask Dylan questions as well. So I have one more question for him. Y'all can start lining up here on these microphones. Only if you have a question. No comments, please. Just questions, and one question per person. Start lining up here. Okay, this is a logistical question, but this is very important to me because I think about this every day. Mm-hmm. You're on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and you now have a book. Do you think it's important to kind of be active on all these platforms? Do you ever feel stretched out? What does it, the day-to-day life look like for you?
When it comes to choosing which platform to upload?
Yeah, and exactly. How are you deciding how much content to put out at any given time?
Well, baking and making things is tremendously messy. It takes a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, I don't want to be doing it every day. I did that for, making the recipes for the book. But this is purely algorithm-based in that I think things did best a week at a time on TikTok, primarily. And then it came to the point where I would just upload that same day to YouTube and Facebook and these things. Truly, I don't have that much of a deep answer for you in that just once a week and then I just throw it out there.
I think the fact that you don't, and I mean this, is actually healthy. The fact that you're not having to actively think, why am I going crazy? I think that's good. That means you have the right pace.
Yes, I might go insane if I try and delve into the analytics of all of that.
Yeah,
I just like food.
That's perfect. Okay, we'll start over here. Your name and your question for Dylan, please.
Hi, my name is Matthew, and my question is, in the Poor Man's Pie video, at the part where you say, if this is a pie filling, then I'm Captain America, did you say that in response to the overwhelming number of people who think you look like a pre-serum Captain America?
Yes. Yes. If there's one comment that keeps cropping up, it's that I look like, oh, it's pre-serum Steve Rogers. I said, I think he's handsome,
It's still Chris Evans.
Yeah. So yes.
Thank you. Right over here.
Hi, Dylan. Hi, Dave. My name's Carter. It's so great to see both of you guys, not just vertical. That's awesome. Dylan, I was really curious, how do you think looking at history through yesteryear, through knickknacks, through recipes, has given you a really different perspective on history than somebody with a traditional historical degree?
That's a really good question. And I don't know, learning history through the perspective of, cakes lists and ingredients lists, you really get a sense of the more mundane operations of people's lives. Through history and everything, you learn of the big things. You learn of the shortages. You learn of, sort of a large scale. But, when you can tell, maybe one year in a Minnesota county, there was a forest fire that, burned down 2 farms. So, they don't have very many, they have some eggless recipes there. It's not that different. It's just a different way it's a different lens. And in many ways, I can't speak on it because I don't have a history background.
Right.
But that's a very good question. In many ways, they're hard questions. But I suppose if I learned history the traditional way, I could compare the two. But the overwhelming answer is I have a newfound appreciation for butter over lard.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to get to you in just a second. I have a virtual question for you.
Oh, yes.
It's not from your mom.
Okay, good.
From Zoe/Sweep in the UK, what is a good recipe in a book for a novice baker to start with? In the book. It's any book. For a novice baker to start with.
The first recipe is really easy, which is pecan dainties. It's sort of 3 ingredients, sugar, egg whites, and pecans. And if you like pecan pie, simple as all get out. You brought up scotcheroos is another good one. I mostly direct people towards the wacky cake, the sort of Great Depression cake, also known as a crazy cake, only because it tastes incredible. It's as easy as pie, and it's done. It's a cake, isn't it? And it's done in no time.
I'm going to tell my mom, Scotcheroos, do that one again. yeah. Okay, right here.
So my name is Katie, and Dylan, my question for you is, I saw that you dedicated this book to your grandma. So what was your favorite recipe of hers that she made for you when you were little?
Oh, that would be my granny's stew. And it was nothing more than, Uncle Ben's rice and, a bit of water in which you boil, a nice piece of beef, and you add in some curry powder, some Worcestershire sauce, and carrots, and, you would just sort of slop it over the rice. But there's something special imbued in grandmothers. There's something magical. If you've ever tried to recreate a recipe that you liked from your grandparents, if you tell me you got it right and it tastes the same, I call you a liar. But, yeah, it was my stew. Thank you. First stew that I ate.
Hi, hello. My name is Ina. If you were to ever go on Great British Baking Show, like a Stand Up to Cancer type of celebrity edition that they have, what would your showstopper be?
I disparaged a lot of the super French fancy baking things. Part of me wants to say I would attempt, like, one of those, do you know what a croquembouche is? Sort of, first of all, any sort of, arrangement of balls is favorable to me. But, balls of sweet dough, and it looks good. I would attempt a showstopper like that. Or, I might just go full insane and serve them a pork cake.
Thank you.
Right here, please.
Hi, my name is Maritza, and are you going to be going to Nashville, Tennessee at any time? Because I have a 25-year-old grandson that lives
Look out, Steve Rogers.
and I have some flowers for you.
Oh my goodness me! Now I don't know if the next time I'm going to Nashville, Tennessee, but you must give my regards.
Thank you. You are freaking awesome.
Thank you so much.
It's so weird. Tennessee was just added to the book tours. Yeah.
Hey, DK.
Is there any? Yeah, AT&T. Okay, right here, please.
Hi there. My name is Michael. I'm a Wyoming native, born and raised.
Yeah.
Undergraduate at UW.
Woo.
But my question is actually about Wyoming. Like, you've spent, if I read correctly, 8 years in Laradice, and I want to ask, how did that, how has that helped you grow? How has that changed, baking yesteryear, and how has that changed you as a person?
In many ways, I think it's kept me humble. Wyoming folk are, you could be driving down the street with a car with 3 wheels, no shirt on, and people won't give you any mind. You're a howdy partner, everyone's equal. Everyone's sort of the same. It is the equality state. I think if I were to be in LA or whatnot, maybe my head would be inflated a little bit more. But the good fashion folks keep you humble. And, to sum up sort of my personality, I'd say I'm a cat person in that I do like the quieter side of life. I know I yell at my camera, but it's helped me to stay true to my personality and to make sure that I don't, turn into a diva. And I just enjoy the more old-fashioned style of life that Wyoming has to offer, truthfully. And yes, we call Laramie Laradice, yes, despite the fact that, it's winter for 10 months.
Best time of year.
Oh, yeah.
That actually, very quickly, I have an audience question that segues perfectly into that. Another segue. From Denise in South Carolina. What does your family, hi Mom, think about your newfound celebrity status?
Oh. I tried to hide it for the longest time.
What book?
They're thrilled. They're thrilled. But of course, after telling my granny, I'm going back, I'm almost done with my music degree, it's just, get your music, and then they turn around and say, my cookbook's coming out next month. It's a bit confusing. But, if not a little bit confused, then they're very pleased. And I think that's because I'm pleased. So.
Right over here, please.
Hi, I'm Alyssa. First, please use the book sales to get Canva or Adobe Premiere and edit vertically. Your neck will thank you. And then you talked about the technical side of TikTok earlier and how to get videos. And I think my question is, how do you work within the algorithm but not feel driven by it and sort of lose the passion and enjoy that you have in what you're doing?
Well, in many ways, I'm speaking from a privileged position in that once you're well known, you can kind of go in any direction. At the start, I do get technical in the sense that I knew that there were two things. You do need to find a niche. I knew from the start that people aren't really going to know your name. They're not really going to know anything. But if you can be known as the X guy or the girl who does Y, when people see me, seldom do they say my name. So they say, "Oh, do you make the old stuff?" I said, that's
Sorry about that when I got here. I just said it.
Yeah, that was my impression of you.
Be something. Yeah.
No, and I don't say that disparagingly because truthfully, it is a privilege to be recognized. But it is, to do something that nobody else is doing, and to just be enthusiastic in that which you do. If you're happy about something, and you're enthusiastic about it, and you capture that, people are naturally going to take an interest. So when it comes to my baking, what I do on TikTok captures all of that, and I'm lucky in that I'm a one-trick pony. I don't do anything else. So in many ways, I haven't had to face those questions because, I've never really been outside of my comfort zone. And it's to all of you I have to thank, truly. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right here, please.
Hi, I'm Allison. During your journey, have you developed any culinary heroes, and would you want to meet any of them?
Yes, I saw one in a picture in the green room this evening. And in many ways, it wasn't because it's related to that which I do, but once you become sort of a baker and you consume media on the internet, you're introduced to others. And Jose Andres is a chef who is, he is a proud American, but he's also, an immigrant, and he's proud of that. And as somebody who really looks up to this nation and wants to be able to do what he wants to do in here, in the States. And, I look up to him like that. And also, he's a little bit insane, which I really like. Yeah.
If you could, ever for me, please do one with Alton Brown.
Alton Brown.
For me,
yes.
just once. Thank you.
Thank you. Right here, please.
Hi, Dylan. My name is Emily, and like you, I think I have a lot of interest, and I was just wondering, does your background in music ever serve you or help you with your baking?
No. No.
You played all of Beethoven in answering that.
I sat there and I tried to weave in something, but it helps me gain appreciation for the creative nature of what some people, even if they're crazy creations, are trying to create through food. Some are attempting to be artistic, even if it's trying to butter the head of a pig and bake it. They're trying to deliver some form of, appreciation or entertainment, much like music does. But no, that's why I say, I'm really not using my degree. But it's always nice to be able to sit down at a piano and play something, because you can't play ingredients. So.
Hi,
Yes.
I'm Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
I do not have TikTok. I downloaded it for 2 weeks to watch every single thing that you've ever put on there. I crave and consume everything you put on YouTube, including and especially the long-form content, but that is not my question. My question is, have you ever, aside from the recipes that are innately gluten-free, have you ever used gluten-free flour in the recipes that you've put in this book?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, I have.
Did it work?
Yes.
In most of them?
In most of them.
Thank you.
Only because, let me tell you, even 10 years ago, gluten-free baking was rather difficult.
Disastrous until 2015. Yes.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, with the advent in sort of one-to-one baking flours and all of this, it's quite difficult to, in some things, yes. Delicate cakes, angel food cakes, perhaps you'll have some difficulties. But when it comes to muffins, cakes, all of these things, cookies, I had a few friends in Laramie that were, gluten intolerant, and I would bake some of these, even in attempting to make this cookbook and writing them. And yeah, I can faithfully say that, especially with a chocolate potato cake, it works great.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Faye. I love all your content. You're hilarious. Just amazing.
Thank you.
Evil demon baby.
Oh, no. Yes. There's so many coded phrases.
My question is, are you aware that graveyards will sometimes on women's graves have baking recipes on them? And if you would ever consider going to a graveyard to find old recipes?
Please don't go to Arlington Cemetery.
I mean, wouldn't that be a sight? It's like 10 p.m., me getting a notepad in some cemetery and just... I think it's really cool that some people have put recipes on their gravestones, sort of literally taking their secret recipe to the grave. And I know that there is another individual, I want to say it's a Mrs. on TikTok or social media that actually does that as her brand. And she goes about and she recreates that. And sort of in the online space, you never want to, sort of barge into someone else's, especially when you found your niche. I would love to attempt some of them, just not recorded, and see, is this worth, did it kill this person? Or did they like it that much?
That'd be quite the calling card.
So I'm open to attempting, yes. It's a good idea.
What was yours?
A collab.
Oh, a collab. Oh,
yes.
With the grave digger? Oh, with the. Thank you. Over here, please.
Hi, I'm Alan. As a fellow lover of collecting old things, I was wondering, do you have any preferred venues of looking for old cookbooks, old knickknacks, stuff like that?
Yeah, so when it comes to, a lot of people will say antique stores, a lot of people go to eBay. I've had the greatest success. It takes a little bit more energy to, look in the classifieds. And
in the paper?
In the paper, yeah. Delivered every day. Estate sales. I'm not sure if it's quite the same in this part of the nation, but when large estates, say in Wyoming, a rancher, it's trying to sell their possessions, it's sort of an auction, and either they're brought up or there's different manner of operations, but you can find a huge amount of old cookbooks because they're being thrown away. It's only really useful for things that are of value, cars or things, they go pretty quickly and you need to be competitive. But for print and media and ephemera of that nature, estate sales are my go-to.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Over here,
We
please.
can take 2 more questions, one from each microphone.
Okay, we'll start with you right here.
Okay. Hi, my name is Alexa. So for those of us who have been watching you, or not mostly, I guess, but a lot of your lives and your live streams on TikTok, and that's where I feel like I've seen the most content, just because you've been doing that for so long, even from the beginning when it was watching you play accordion and which yeah. So I guess what are your thoughts on that? Because I'm sure that takes a lot to do those long live streams all the time, as often as you were doing them at one point, and then also with TikTok being up in the air about things and being weird and having changes all the time. And then I know semi-recently in one of the lives you said you were looking for ideas of other stuff to put in them or other stuff to talk about while you're baking, or other stuff even to put on TikTok. Have you had any more thoughts about that, or anything to do with the lives? Because I love those. So.
Yeah, I used to live stream quite often where I would go through a recipe in its entirety on really long live streams, and I would have a bunch of fun. And The answer as to why I sort of slowed down was quite simple in that I got a new neighbor. And let me tell you, that second night that she moved in, and I'm sitting there yelling and screaming at my camera,
rolling on the rug,
talking to people. Yeah, you know, no one's talking back to this man. And so, in the simplest of terms, I was trying to be a little bit respectful, which seems like a cop-out, but, you know, I don't have the bravado to be like, you know, plus it didn't help that I would start them at like 8 p.m. and we'd go to 10. But I don't know. In many ways, the fact that I'm a one-trick pony and I, you know, still bake on TikTok and that's what I'm known for, I kind of want to ride it until the wheels fall off. When it, yeah. What I am starting to venture out into is, if any of you saw my video with the great Nick DiGiovanni, perhaps collaborations or, you know, working with other chefs, working in new things that are quite similar to that which I do, but still in the same wheelhouse.
Thank you. Last question.
Hi, my name is Maddie. I feel immense pressure having the last question, but it's also related to live streams.
Oh.
So we're 2 hours ahead at least on the East Coast, so I often watch them when I'm getting ready for bed. And I find that they have the most calming presence, even when you're yelling at the oven. Especially the nighttime lighting, especially the end.
Oh, yes.
But my direct question, as a music lover, the tune you use at the end.
Yes.
What is it and why?
This is a great tie-in to the start of this talk. So there's a musician by the name of Al Hirt, who is a New Orleans trumpeter. And he is an instrumentalist, and it was very big in the 1950s, 1960s. He was the man who made the sweet sound from the horn, honey. His tagline was like, honey from the horn, or whatnot. And his Last Date is the name of the song. And it was originally a Floyd Cramer song. Floyd Cramer was a Nashville pianist, country music. And Al Hirt covered Last Date in his album Cotton Candy. And I had that album, and it was one of the first things I collected when I came to the United States, was this album from an estate sale of Cotton Candy. And I listened to it, and Last Date was a great tune, and the color of that album, I knew I wanted that to be the color of the book. So if you look up Al Hirt Cotton Candy, you'll see this same color, and Last Date, because that's how I end it, it makes sense, and, you know, dates.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a perfect sign-off. Thank you, everyone, so much for coming. You keep saying you're a one-trick pony, but to use a baking term, I find you equal parts charming, talented, and good at baking.
Oh.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much to be Dylan Hollis and Dave Jorgensen.